Hello, and welcome to another episode of Your Competitive Edge with Baird Warner. I'm Lauren Walker. I'm Senior Director of Strategy here at Inman. And last week, we spoke with Laura Ellis, and Laura gave us a vision for 2020. And what was really interesting was she talked a little bit about leadership and culture. And so we wanted to dive deeper into that. And that's why I am thrilled to welcome Tripti Kasal, who is Senior Vice President of Residential Sales at Baird Warner, to talk with me more about that. Hey, Tripti.
Hey, Lauren, how are you?
I am great. I'm great. And
Good.
I'm really glad we get to talk more about this.
Yes, me
We
too.
saw a lot of engagement after Laura gave her conversation with us, and
Yeah.
especially about this idea of leadership. So I'm really
Mhm.
glad you're here and we can talk a little bit more about that. So, why don't we just get started? And why don't we even start, kind of take a step back? What does leadership even mean?
Well, that's a really good question because there's a lot of misconceptions about it. People have this idea that leadership is this like big nebulous thing. And I've heard so many definitions. Leadership is really literally about leading people. So it's when you do things and you do things that other people are following you or other people want. You A leader is creating a path, creating a vision, creating a path, and making it easy for people. And oftentimes we're leading just by what we do every day in our lives, but sometimes it's very intentional where a leader is actually creating a way for people to move forward.
That sounds right to me. So, what does leadership mean specifically at Baird and Warner?
Well, and that's a really good question. And this is titled Leadership and Culture. Leadership, our culture is a lot about leadership. And one of the things that we feel very strongly is that in the real estate industry and even a lot of other industries, that's an area that is lacking. Leadership is lacking if it's not intentional. We're very intentional at Baird Warner about our leadership because we really think that that sets the tone for our agents, for our culture, and for our clients, that with the proper leadership, it's sort of like a captain at a ship where the ship is always going in the right direction if we're focused on leadership. So it's a big part of our culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And Laura touched on that. So I'm hoping you can talk a little bit more about this because, agents are solopreneurs.
Mm.
At the end of the day, they're really running their own micro businesses. And
Yeah.
so how do you approach that when you've got, a whole bunch of captains? If we're going to
Yeah.
use this nautical theme,
Yeah.
who's in charge of the captains and how do you structure that?
Yeah, and that's a great question because that's a debate we often have. Everyone in the real estate industry talks about how do you lead when you have independent contractors, which we do. And I think it's a misconception. The old-fashioned definition of a manager, of a leader, is someone who's micromanaging people and telling them what to do morning, noon, and night. I don't know that that ever worked well for bringing out the best in people, but it certainly doesn't work well for independent contractors. But independent contractors, they need leadership too, even more so sometimes in employees, because they are running their own business. They are masters of their own practice. And so they're kind of off on their own oftentimes. So to having a company that provides leadership, that's providing direction, that has support to help them becomes even more critical. So it's not something we're enforcing on them. It's something that we're providing to them to help make their businesses easier.
So, are you saying that your idea of leadership is someone in the office who's focused on the agents being pushed to improve, doing more with their day? It's not like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this?
Exactly, exactly. I mean, that's a great way of looking at it. So all of our offices, we have 28 offices, and everyone has a full-time managing broker who does not compete with the agents.
Hmm.
So their job every day is to get up and go in the office and help agents to figure out how to do their business and how to do it best and how to make it easy and how to get them to help their clients. And so our agents, when we say leadership is part of our culture, they know that when somebody's working for Baird Warner, they know there is a person literally in the office or virtually available to them, but there's a very clear line of support from a leader. And that leader not only helps them when they have problems, but helps them through difficult times through their business, and helps them plan, and helps to um,
Hmm.
help them figure out what they're going to do in the future, as well as problem solve today.
Okay. So, business planning, workflow, things like that. What is the difference between a leader and a coach?
Well, that's a really good question because they're often used interchangeably. And leadership is really, if you think about it, it's almost external. A leader is looking at what's going on in the world. They're figuring out what the path for an agent is, where's business going, what's happening, and as well as what are the steps to get us there. There is one definition of leadership that says you're leading if you look behind you and people are following.
Mhm.
Now, comparing that to coaching, coaching is you turn around, you see who's following you, and you stop, and then you direct your energies to that specific person and helping them do the best they can. So leadership is creating the path. Coaching is actually getting to know the agent, what matters to that agent when they're on that path. What do they want to be on that path, and how can they get their best? So a leader will be somebody who's maybe deciding what direction the business should be going. A coach then sits down with the agent and says, this is what we see happening in our marketplace. We see, for example, that, um, inflation is, or interest rates are going down. So, I suggest in your business plan that you start reaching out to clients and helping them decide if they want to refi or perhaps buy up. So that's like the two sides of leadership and how that operates. And it's very important to us that our leaders have the ability to coach and have the ability to lead. Not everyone can do both well, but it is important that they do both. And that's why the distinction is important to us, because we want to make sure our leaders have both the skills to do both.
Well, how do you empower them with those skills? Because
Well,
not, as you just said, not everybody wakes up in the day, I'm ready to coach. I'm a great coach and a great leader. We're not born
right.
with those skills.
Right. We're not born with those skills, and not everybody has them. And it's hard to find, the people that have them. But as I said earlier, Baird Warner is very intentional about their leadership. And some of the things that how that plays out is we do a lot of training for our managers. We have monthly meetings where we bring all 28 managers in, as well as our assistant managers, because they are often on a path to become a manager, and we educate them. So we lead them in the same way that they lead their agents. We do training for them. We do coaching for our managers. One of my jobs and the other person in my role is that we coach our managers and we help train them. We also have a program called Leadership Institute, which is a program that agents or other employees that are considering a role in leadership. It's a year-long training program for them. Very few real estate companies have a program like that I know of, but we're very intentional in that. And many of our managers come out of that program. We run it yearly. We've been running it for years. And even the ones who don't become managers, they learn a lot about themselves, and they may become a team leader or something of that sort. We also bring in outside speakers. We recently brought in Tom Ferry to speak to our entire company, but then we also had him do a special training and coaching session for our managers. So there are things all along the way that we do to train our managers to become better leaders, so that they can pay that forward to their agents.
Sure. All right, here's a bit of a curveball. How has technology changed the way people are leading? I mean, I just feel like, Baird Warner is doing some really interesting things from a technology standpoint of
Yeah,
empowering, with tools. Laura talked a little bit about this. And so I'm
yeah.
wondering how you've seen that change the way that you're growing these leaders from within.
Well, I think one of the things that technology has done for us is it really has freed up our managers to do what they really do best, which is to lead.
Mhm.
By having offices that are paperless, by being able to do things like you and I are doing now, many of our managers use technology to communicate to their agents, because agents are not always in the office and it's not always the best use of their time. So our managers use BombBomb. They use videos like this. They do online training. So technology really, some of our competitors say that they're technology companies. We are not a technology company. We are a real estate company, and we use the technology tools to empower our leaders to be able to do more of what they do best, which is to lead the agents.
Absolutely. Laura said that too. I love that that's really ingrained in your philosophy day to day
Hmm.
is we're not a tech company, we're a real
Yeah,
estate company. And
yeah,
it really shifts your priorities from a people
right.
standpoint.
Hmm.
So how you've got your managing brokers who are not competing, but how can agents be leaders themselves?
Well, that's a really interesting question that you asked, because I think that sometimes agents don't think of themselves as leaders,
Right.
but they are leaders. They are leaders not only of their business, but they are leaders of the real estate transaction. They are the ones that, technology. brings all the information to our clients. They don't necessarily need more information, but they need people to lead them through the process of buying a home, selling a home. It's a complicated process. And in that way, every single one of our agents is a leader. They lead the transaction, they lead their clients, and they lead the entire process of buying and selling real estate from step one to step to the end step. And I think that it's important that they understand that. And we, like at Baird Warner, our managers who are, we have the greatest managers. We have excellent team of managers, are also in turn making the agents understand that they're leaders of their transactions and their
Absolutely.
clients.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
And
And in
in your
their
community,
communities.
one more thing I should mention is our agents are leaders in their community. And that's something that cannot be underestimated when you think about what the things that they do. In addition to helping people buy and sell a home, many of them are very active in volunteer organizations in their schools and all sorts of things. So
Yeah.
they're leaders in their community.
No, that's absolutely right. So talk a little bit more because that's really interesting that you have Tom Ferry coming in. So what is he focusing on from a leadership training standpoint for you guys?
So you know what he the most recent session where Tom Ferry came in, he did a half day session that was open to all of our agents, which is unheard of. That's just part of part of our culture to bring
Mhm.
that sort of training to our agents at no cost to them. Then when he does a session with the managers, really what it's all about, his session to agents were really about, what's going on in the real estate industry, what's changing, what can they use to best serve their clients. And in turn, he helps the managers learn how to best train the agents to do that. Because we've all been there. We've attended a 3-hour training and we get all excited and pumped and take a ton of notes, and then you go back and you find them in your briefcase or in your notes on your computer like months later. The idea is that when we train those agents with that, we then later train the managers so they can bring that back to the office and continue with their agents and keep the things that they learned top of mind.
And are these opportunities just for new folks coming to Baird and Warner, or is it across the company?
It's across the company. That's very ingrained in our culture that training is for everyone. We do have a fantastic training program for new agents, and that's why we do so well, and so many of our new agents do so well. But that is just the first step. We have a program. It's called Achieve, which is for new agents. At the other end of the spectrum, we have a program called Ascend, which is very specific training and support for our top agents, because there's a very different kind of training. It's not even training. It's almost work-life balance. Sort of the top agents have different needs. And then we have a program called Accelerate, which is training available to all of our agents. And that includes things like the Tom Ferry event. It includes regional trainings. It includes in-office trainings. So, we realize that the most important thing we can do to empower our clients, our agents, to help their clients, is to make sure that we're constantly training them and bringing out the best in them.
Absolutely. So, what would you say to our audience? Because we've got a whole bunch of people watching this, and they're in all spectrums, in all markets. What would you want folks to take away from this, thinking about themselves as leaders?
I think the same thing that when we talked about agents, that everybody is a leader, and you're a leader in your community, in your family, in your work, and think about that. What can you do that helps the people who are following you? Because we all have somebody or some people that are following us, and it's empowering to know that what you do makes a difference in other people's lives, and it does. Everyone's a leader in their own way, and I think that's the way that they should view that.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Tripti. This was great. I'm so glad we were able to go deeper into this topic because we really did
Yes.
see a lot of engagement on it. So I'm sure this will be really valuable for the
Awesome.
audience. All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you so
Lauren.
much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.